Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and it is finally here. We have the RTX 4070 Ti from NVIDIA launching today, and we can also reveal the performance numbers for this graphics card compared to a whole bunch of other stuff, including the all-important RX 7900 XT, because that's the card you'll probably want to be comparing it against, because this card costs $900, this card costs $800, and they're both next generation, or current generation now, graphics cards. So the one that we'll be using today is the Gigabyte Gaming OC12G. So that's the card that I've used in all my testing today, but following up from that very quickly is a card from Zotac, which is the Amp Extreme, and also we have a fabulous looking card from Palette as well, which is the Gaming Pro OC, all 12GB cards of course, and you will need two 8-pin power connectors to power these cards. They all come with the new connector that you're probably familiar with seeing the RTX 4080 and 4090 videos, but you only need two 8-pin power connectors to power these cards. So as I say, confirmed pricing of $800, and that's the same in the UK as well. It's £800, so that's what we're looking at here. What we'll be doing today is going through the performance numbers, quickly going through the specifications as well, and coming to some conclusions at the end. And as I mentioned, we'll be looking at the other cards in separate videos, so we can do a little bit more in-depth testing there. So first though, a word from our sponsor.
Our sponsor today is scdkey.com, where right now you can get some great deals on software such as Windows 10, Windows 11 and Microsoft Office. Even better news is that I have a discount code to share with you guys that will get you even more money off this software. So Microsoft Windows 10 Pro, for example, which is fully upgradable for free to Windows 11 if you want to do that. All you have to do is click Buy Now, enter the code CRT25 into the promotion code box, click apply, and the UK price, for example, will drop from £17 all the way down to just £12.76, and you'll see similar discounts elsewhere in other currencies as well. Once purchased, you'll want to head to your order page and copy the Windows 10 Pro key shown at the bottom of the page. When you're in Windows, you want to move your mouse over to the Start button, right click, go to Settings, then Update and Security, and then move up to Activation, and finally, click on Change Your Product Key, copy and paste your brand new product key into the box, click Next, then click Activate, and your Windows 10 installation is now activated. Finally, you can do exactly the same thing with Office 2021 Professional by clicking the Buy button using code CR25 again, click Apply, and you'll get a hefty discount on Office as well. Thanks again to SCD Key for sponsoring this video, and you can see a whole bunch more links and discounts in the description below.
So in terms of pricing then, we have $1,600 for the RTX 4090, $1,200 for the RTX 4080, and $800 for the 4070 Ti. So those are some pretty big price gaps, especially between the 4080 and the 4070 Ti. Honestly, I was thinking that this card was going to come in at around $900 to $1,000, but $800 is still expensive, but it's less than what I thought it would be. So in terms of specifications, you've got 12GB of GDDR6 memory compared to 16 on the 4080. You have a 192-bit memory bus compared to the 256-bit on the 4080. And the TDP here, the board power is 285 watts versus 320 for the 4080. If you're looking at other specifications, CUDA core count is at 7,600 versus 9,700 for the 4080. And we actually have a slightly higher boost frequency here on the 4070 Ti of 2.6 GHz versus 2.5 GHz for the 4080. But overall throughput, FP32 compute, it stands at 48.6 teraflops for the 4080 and 38.4 teraflops for the 4070 Ti. So the 4080 then, a much more powerful card, and that's why it demands a much higher price. So without further ado, let's get on with the benchmark.
Before we get into the benchmarking, I just wanted to quickly touch on my test system, which includes a Core i9-12900K processor running at stock speed, which is water cooled to remove any thermal bottlenecking. That's strapped to an Asus ROG Maximus Z690 Apex motherboard and 32 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. The system uses an up-to-date version of Windows 11, the latest drivers from AMD and NVIDIA, and all games are BAR or Smart Access Memory enabled where possible. First up is Watch Dogs Legion, and at 1440p with DXR enabled, the RTX 4070 Ti keeps up with the RX 7900 XT, albeit with a slightly lower average frame rate, but it's generally worth it over the AMD card thanks to its lower price tag. It also offers a significant boost over the RTX 3080. Stepping up to 4K, and there's even less of a difference between the two cards here, the RTX 4070 Ti just behind the RX 7900 XT, and again enjoying a sizable boost over the RTX 3080, RTX 3080 Ti, and even the RTX 3090, offering a similar result to the RTX 3090 Ti. However, it's worth noting that the RTX 4080 is significantly faster. Finally, in Watch Dogs, we're now at 4K but with DLSS enabled, and here we can see the RTX 4070 Ti enjoying a sizable frame rate advantage over the RX 7900 XT, which doesn't, of course, have DLSS, so if you are willing to use DLSS, it can definitely give you an advantage over AMD in this game. Next up is Rainbox Six Extraction, and at 1440p we have another close call between the RX 7900 XT and the 4070 Ti, although here the difference is slightly wider with a much higher minimum 99th percentile on the AMD card than on the NVIDIA one. So the average frame rate's a little closer, but you would probably opt for the AMD card over the 4070 Ti in this case. Stepping up to 4K, and here the AMD card is noticeably ahead with a significant lead in the minimum 99th percentile and average frame rate. However, the RTX 4070 Ti offering a decent boost over the RTX 3080, but generally here you would still pick the 7900 XT given it only costs around $100 more. And finally, we have DLSS enabled at 4K now, and as expected, the RTX 4070 Ti managing a sizable boost over its standard frame rate without DLSS enabled at all, and it massively leapfrogs the 7900 XT here. So well worth remembering, if you're prepared to use DLSS for a frame rate boost, you'll see a massive improvement here, and the RTX 4070 Ti even managing to outstrip the RTX 4080's stock frame rate here as well by quite some margin. Microsoft Flight Simulator can be a tricky game to get any noticeable frame rate improvements, and that's where DLSS 3.0 can come in handy, which we'll look at in a second. And here in this low altitude flight test, there is very little room between a lot of the higher end graphics cards with bottlenecks elsewhere in the system. However, the RTX 4070 Ti does hold a sizable lead over the RX 7900 XT and also over the RTX 3080. Stepping up to 4K, and the AMD card did manage to get ahead slightly with a small advantage on the average frame rate, but the 4070 Ti managed a higher 99th percentile. But again, there's not that much between the cards here, but you'd probably opt for the cheaper one, which is the RTX 4070 Ti. Finally then, enabling DLSS, and this is just the low-end DLSS, it's not DLSS 3 with frame generation yet, we'll get to that in a second, but here we don't really see that much of an improvement due to other bottlenecks in the system, but again, the RTX 4070 Ti offering a decent lead with DLSS enabled over the RX 7900 XT. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the game has both DLSS and AMD FSR enabled in this game, so you can get frame rate boosts, whatever graphics card you actually own. And in this slightly different benchmark, which was based on a beta provided by NVIDIA a while back for the DLSS 3.0 testing, it's just as important to test AMD cards in this game now, because you get FSR a boost with that as well. And this benchmark that NVIDIA provided, it does seem to be a slightly better one in terms of generating some differences between these graphics cards. So it's probably something that I will switch to in future compared to my low altitude test. I just tend to prefer to have really smooth frame rates at lower altitude, so that's where I like to do a lot of my testing. So again, this is probably something I'll switch to in future. So here we have DLSS 3.0 as expected, reigning at the top of the graph, reigning supreme there thanks to the frame generation, and for me the image quality looks absolutely fantastic. So to have the RTX 4070 Ti way up there, outstripping even the RX 7900 XTX with FSR enabled by quite a margin is pretty impressive. So if you're prepared to use DLSS 3.0 and you're a big flight simulator fan, then this card is an absolute steal for the money, because you just haven't been able to get these frame rates for less than $1,000 before, really. So this is really, really great news for anyone that's looking to purchase an RTX 4000 series card and likes playing Flight Simulator. Next up we have Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, and at 1440p with ray tracing enabled. We have a not really a tie between the two cards here. One has a slightly higher average frame rate in the form of the 4070 Ti, and the 7900 XT meanwhile has a higher 99th percentile. So which card would you go over the two? I'd probably go for the 7900 XT just because it has that additional lead with the minimum 99th percentile. That's what I would probably go for, because the lead there is greater than the average frame rate. Again though, the 4070 Ti enjoying a sizable boost over the RTX 3080 and 3080 Ti, and even manages to beat the RTX 3090 Ti in this test, which is pretty impressive. So a bit of a weird looking result here, and that weirdness comes from the fact that the RTX 4070 Ti was just a frame short on the 99th percentile of the 7900 XT, and the graph is sorted by the 99th percentile because I think that's a more important metric. But again, here you would pick the NVIDIA card over AMD just because overall it's a faster card. Here though, it doesn't quite manage to outstrip the RTX 3090 Ti. Just that card's just got more oomph behind it. However, it does outstrip the RTX 3080 and 3080 Ti by quite significant margins. Next up, Metro Exodus. Basically at 4K, same settings again, but this time with DLSS enabled, and we have a big win for the RTX 4070 Ti. As we can see there, it's massively outstripping the RX 7900 XT, which sadly doesn't offer any benefits in Enhanced Edition in terms of FSR or anything like that, so it's DLSS only in this game. So if you're prepared to use that, Metro Exodus is just another game that will benefit from DLSS if you want to use it. And here, as we can see, with DLSS enabled, interestingly, at the same resolution that it was slower than the RTX 3090 Ti, it's actually slightly faster this time around with DLSS enabled. So even at the same resolution, DLSS enabled, it seems to be that the RTX 4000 series benefits more from DLSS than previous generation cards. Next up, we have one of my favourite current games, which is Halo Infinite in campaign mode, and at 1440p we have a big win for NVIDIA here, the RTX 4070 Ti offering much higher minimum 99th percentile and average frame rates than the RX 7900 XT, and in fact it even beats the RX 7900 XTX, which is a pretty impressive feat considering how much cheaper it is. And we see a slight lead over the average frame rate compared to the 3090 and 3090 Ti, around 20 frames per second, but it is slower on the 99th percentile. So kind of a weird metric there, that the cards above seem to be slightly more compressed in the 3000 series in terms of their average 99% average frame rates and 99th percentiles. However, the RTX 4080 is significantly faster in this game. Stepping up to 4K, and once again the 4070 Ti has the advantage over the RX 7900 XT. There's no real competition here from that card, and the RX 7900 XTX even can only just about match the 4070 Ti's average frame rate, but is 5 frames behind on the minimum 99th percentile. The 4070 Ti strangely offering a similar 99th percentile to the 4080, but is much slower In Forza Horizon 5 at 1440p, this time with ultra settings and ray tracing enabled, it's the RX 7900 XT which comes out on top. However, it's not quite as clear cut on the average frame rate, which was actually slower on the AMD card, as we've seen for the 7900 XTX as well, which was also beaten by the 4070 Ti. So depends which one you're aiming for. The minimum 99th percentile is still pretty close to the AMD card at 98 versus 110 frames, but the 4070 Ti has a higher average frame rate. So again, a bit of a toss-up between the two. You'd probably go with the NVIDIA card just here, just because it has a much higher average frame rate. But as I say, it's kind of a toss-up between the two. The RTX 4070 Ti, again though, offering a significant advantage over the RTX 3080. Stepping up to 4K, again with ray tracing enabled, and again we are seeing the compression of the AMD results, so the minimum 99th percentile and average frame rates not as far apart as they are with the NVIDIA cards, which is kind of interesting. So the 4070 Ti down there at the bottom, some way behind the minimum 99th percentile of the 7900 XT, which was boosted a little bit by FSR in this test. Unfortunately, DLSS wasn't available when I did the testing. So 4070 Ti offering 118 frames per second on the average frame rate, which was higher than the AMD card. So it's kind of a toss-up between the two, depending on whether you want to go for the minimum 99th percentile, the highest figure, or you want to get the highest average frame rate. Next up is Far Cry 6, and at ultra settings at 1440p, we have a win for AMD here, which we saw last time when we looked at the RX 7900 XT, which offers a big frame rate boost over not just the 4070 Ti, but also over the 4080 as well. So this game just preferring AMD, and it's a clear win here for the 7900 XT. The RTX 4070 Ti does offer a sizable benefit over the RTX 3080 again, but maybe not perhaps justifying the extra price tag that you'll be paying for it this time round. Stepping up to 4K now then, and the 4070 Ti, again, not really offering much competition to the 7900 XT, which costs just $100 or so more, but offers a much higher frame rate on both the average and minimum 99th percentile, so you would always go for the AMD card here. However, the RTX 4070 Ti having the measure just about over the RTX 3090 Ti with a higher minimum 99th percentile but slightly lower average frame rate, while the 3080 all the way at the bottom of the graph isn't actually that far behind. Our final game test is Far Cry 6, this time at 4K but with DXR reflections enabled. So what we have here is again a win for AMD. It's doing pretty well with DXR enabled, which is good to see, because previous generations didn't fare too well with DXR in some games, but here absolutely justifying its extra cost over the NVIDIA card. Far Cry 6 not just not being that friendly with NVIDIA here. In fact, the 7900 XT pretty much matches the much more expensive RTX 4080, so it's no surprise to hear that we would recommend getting the AMD card over the 4070 Ti in Far Cry 6. Our final test then is power consumption, and I should reiterate here that the RTX 4070 Ti needs two spare 8-pin power connectors, and they hook up to the card, or at least on the Gigabyte model that I've got, using a splitter cable which splits the new connector into two 8-pin sockets. So here we can see that the power consumption is 433 watts for the RTX 4070 Ti, which is about the same as the 7900 XT, but like the XT, the power efficiency isn't that great, considering the RTX 4080, which was significantly faster than both of those cards in virtually every single test, only drew about 10 or 20 watts more. So it's not looking great in terms of efficiency for either the 7900 XT or the 4070 Ti here. The Gigabyte RTX 4070 Ti Gaming OC 12G proved to be particularly quiet during testing, with its fans regularly spinning down to 0 RPM while I was watching videos or at the desktop, and even in the first few minutes of gaming. However, when they do spin up, they're still relatively quiet, and the GPU temperature was kept around 60 degrees C under load, for example here in Metro Exodus at 4K with extreme settings.
So what do we make of the RTX 4070 Ti then? Well, I think NVIDIA has done enough to offer better value here than the RX 7900 XT, which was not really that competitive to start with anyway. The XTX was a much better option, given it only cost $100 more and was significantly faster. So the 4070 Ti offering better bang for your buck and was actually faster in a number of tests too, and where it was slower, it was never usually by huge amounts, except in one or two situations where, such as Far Cry 6. So for me, I think given the benefits of DLSS 3, the general benefits of DLSS elsewhere in the greater number of titles that support the earlier versions of DLSS, plus the fact that it offers decent performance compared to the AMD card overall, I think for me, NVIDIA has done what it needs to do here. Now, there is a pretty big price gap between it and the 4080, as we mentioned earlier. That does kind of result in a much higher performance for the RTX 4080. So if you can stretch that far, it does offer a lot more performance. So does the RX 7900 XTX as well, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than the 4080, of course, not than this card here. So I think this is finally NVIDIA kind of getting into affordable territory. It's still a very expensive card. A lot of you won't be wanting to spend more than $500 or $600 on your graphics card. And a few years ago, that would get you the flagship model. We now have two models above this card, and this card is already more expensive than where we were just a few years ago in terms of flagships. So that's still an issue. Of course, $800 is a heck of a lot cheaper than $1,200, so we've got to be thankful for that, and this is a very powerful card. There are some great examples out here, such as the Gigabyte card that we've got here. I'm hoping that there will be water blocks for it, because this is very much, you know, a high-end card as far as I'm concerned, so I want to be able to water cool it. We'll have to wait for the likes of EK and others to come out with those water blocks. And we'll also be looking at the Zotac and the Palette models as well to see how they fare in terms of performance and cooling and general design. So overall then, it's a win for NVIDIA today. It's not the affordable 4070 model that we were kind of hoping for, I guess, but it is cheaper than where a lot of us thought it would be. So we're not looking at a $1,000 card here. In fact, its launch price is a lot less than that. It's at $800. Still expensive, but you do get a reasonable amount of performance for your money, and it's also a better option for the most part compared to the 7900 XT. However, I would definitely watch my video of the 7900 cards, because there are some areas where you might want to consider the 7900 XTX, or maybe even step up to the 4080 or 4090. Again, you're looking at double the cost of this card, so maybe not for you. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll be back with reviews of these two monsters as well. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Always love hearing about what you guys think of these videos. And also, are you considering an RTX 4080 for your rig, or are you holding out for something cheaper? Are you holding out for the 4060 series, for example? So always interested to hear what you guys come up with in the comments. So I'd like to thank NVIDIA today. Also, I'd like to thank Gigabyte, Palette and Zotac for sending over these cards as well. We'll be looking at those very soon. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.